Today we're talking about burnout. I just recently returned home from a week of chaos and beauty, which is what a lot of burlesque seems to be made up of. But I am now decompressing from a wild, busy week. We just had our third year of Shade and Night of Colorful Burlesque at the end of March, and then last weekend I had the Vancouver International Burlesque Festival following it. Both of those are really, really big events, whether you're producing them or participating in them or even just watching. And so I'm tired. Today is going to be a little bit more chill. I'm a little bit more cozy, because one of the realities of burlesque and performing that we don't talk about nearly as much as the glitz and the glamour is that burnout is real. It is something that can impact our lives, and it can actually prevent us from wanting to do burlesque, or we might struggle to continue keeping up with the hustle or getting those gigs or writing those blog posts or making YouTube videos or whatever it is that our passions are for burlesque. Today is going to be a lot more casual than past videos, but burnout, what is it? That's a good question. For me, burnout is when you feel extreme fatigue and tiredness and unmotivated to do the things that usually excite you, or usually you might have a ton of energy to do them, and then suddenly, either when you have a lot of stress in your life, you have a lot of emotional labor you have to deal with, you have a lot of work that you have to do, or you have a family to commit to, and everything's kind of piling on top, and you don't get breaks for yourself, then you run very, very, very low on fuel. Burnout is really like that major glitter crash, but it might not even come right after a show or right after one really big concrete event that you're a part of. Sometimes it just happens naturally. And one of the more official definitions is by the American Psychological Association, and they define burnout as physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion accompanied by decreased motivation, lowered performance, and negative attitudes towards oneself and others. It results from performing at high level until stress and tension, especially from extreme and prolonged physical or mental exhaustion or an overburdening workload, take their toll. And so with burnout, some of the signs and symptoms that you might see, often it leads to exhaustion, which can be physical, mental, or emotional, or all three, or two of the three, or just any combination of the three. It can lead to a lot of forgetfulness and decreased memory, change in eating habits. Maybe you stop eating, maybe you start eating more than you usually do. Physical changes like headaches, or maybe even increased anxiety or depression. You might experience feelings of cynicism and hopelessness. And maybe, whether or not you're somebody who's really social normally and an extrovert, or just who can manage socialization, maybe you withdraw socially due to a lack of energy. And often you might be avoiding tasks, and even tasks that you're used to doing, that you like doing, or that usually don't take any effort for you at all to do. Everyone's capacity is very different. Even when you're at your full state, what I can and can't do is very different from other people as well. You might feel overwhelmed or tired. And I know for me, one of the things that I feel quite often when I'm burnt out is I'm tired of being tired. It's the thing where you think, I just need to rest. I just want to sleep. I just need to do nothing for a day and then I'll be back on my feet tomorrow. And that's not always the case. Burnout is often something that stays with you for a while. One of the examples that I heard of somewhat recently was about how you're filling your cup, but even when you're filling your cup, if your cup has holes in it, it's not going to fill up. And so if you're burnt out, essentially you are that cup. I want to say thank you to Misty Moss, who was the one who I saw that from. Why might you feel it? There's a lot of reasons why you might experience burnout in burlesque. Some of the most common ones is the hustle. It can be a lot to really push yourself to network and socialize, especially if you're somebody who might be introverted. Maybe you have to fight imposter syndrome at the same time. The concept of constantly feeling the need to create and create and create, that takes a lot of work as well, again, emotionally, mentally, and because of that, there's a lot of comparison. That is just a natural way of human life and human experiences. Is comparison is so easy to get into. Am I doing enough? Am I being booked enough? Am I trying hard enough? I feel so lost. I don't even know where I'm going next. And when that happens, it can be really easy to get into the mindset of, the fear of being forgotten or the being afraid of being irrelevant. That can be hard no matter who you are. That goes into like navigating burlesque, and you have to navigate an entire industry that's not what we're usually used to seeing in general with work. And as someone who might belong to a marginalized community, you have to navigate what does safety and equity look like in burlesque. What stages, what venues, what producers, what performers even are safe to be around. That can be exhausting on its own. And despite all this, through all of that, we are still humans and we are still people before we are performers. People have families. A lot of people have day jobs. A lot of people have their own personal lives or even health that they're navigating that they have to be aware of while they do burlesque. All of these different things add to burnout and exhaustion in burlesque, and it is not fun at all. But even when you're feeling extreme fatigue and you feel done or questioning if you want to keep doing burlesque, that's a completely different experience and different situation. But that can be a part of burnout, is feeling like, why am I doing this? Maybe I should retire, maybe I should stop performing. I personally have found some practices that have helped me. None of these are the answer. They might not work for you, they might work for you. First, before I really give some of those examples, I just want to acknowledge that if you are feeling burnt out, if you are feeling tired, if you are feeling exhausted and lost, you're not alone. And know that burlesque will always be here. But if you are feeling tired, you're not alone. This is not a unique experience. First step for burnout is acknowledge that you have it and recognize that it exists. It can really take a toll in a really bad way if you refuse to acknowledge burnout, if you refuse to acknowledge that you're tired. Say, nah, this is a later problem, because you know what, later will show up and you're gonna regret pushing it back. Make sure you acknowledge it, don't avoid it, don't push through it. Take breaks and rest, and take time to acknowledge it. Sometimes managing burnout is just accepting that you are burnt out, and sometimes you have to slump, and that is okay. My first really big thing is, for me, is finding my coziness. Going and navigating towards things that are cozy is like my comfort zone in my day-to-day life. So you see, I have like a fuzzy robe. I often have a toque or a hood up. If I have a hood, I might be sitting at my computer desk with my hood up. I often go towards things like baths or tea. So finding your medicine. So for me, it's a lot of cozy things. For others, it might be animals, it might be children, it might be going out for walks in nature, down the street in the neighborhood. Really like think about what are your medicines and what are some things that have helped you in the past or might regularly in your day-to-day life help you feel better. While you're doing that, make sure you are taking breaks. Make sure you are taking a break from your computer, taking a break and walking outside, taking a break from social media, taking a break from performing even if that's one weekend or whatever you can afford. The biggest lesson I have learned this last year, being able to say no. No to yourself, no to producers, no to community members. Just learn how to say no. It forces you to take a break because you are taking breaks from performing, at least, or talking to people or whatever you're saying no to. It gives you less work to hopefully not add on top of your stress or on top of your physical exhaustion, at least from go. I like to think, at least for me, it might be different for other people, but for me, being able to learn to say no to things has actually been really empowering. Being able to say no to things has given me a lot more energy and a lot more confidence in being able to say yes to the things I am excited for and no to the things that I'm not excited for. Learn to say no. And speaking of which, I mentioned emotional labor a few times in this video. Hi. If you're somebody who is often finding themselves giving emotional labor for people, whether or not it's free, make sure it's not free unless you really like the person. And even then, make sure you're getting paid. It's so easy in burlesque when people say it's a community and when people say, or we're all friends, or you really like everybody in your local scene, or you do feel a sense of community. Even if you do feel really drawn to people, and if you really like your community, and if you do really like people and you're extroverted, you still have to get paid for emotional labor. And sometimes, you know what? If you're in a scene, like I've mentioned this before in a past video about you are so much bigger than your local scene. Even if you just debuted, even if you debuted yesterday, Burlesque is so much bigger than this little bubble that so many of us put ourselves in our local scenes. And so for me, a huge thing is getting out of my scene. And that is where I get inspired. So I make sure that I'm staying connected, even if it's on social media. Staying connected to the bigger industry and seeing what's going on is huge. So get out of your local scene and also get out of your regular routine, whatever that means to you. And sometimes maybe you are really busy. Maybe you have your hands in a lot of different pockets, doing a lot of different things within Burlesque, or just life in general. It's good to look at your commitments. I have to regularly look at my commitments and look at all of the things and projects that I'm doing, and look at what are the things I want to be doing, or the projects I'm wanting to start. Is there anything that might be causing your burnout specifically? Is there anything that is causing you stress and exhaustion and a really big workload? Is there a way you can navigate that stress, or maybe offload something so that other people can take responsibilities and help you with your project? And think about, of that list that you're looking at, what still excites you? What is something that you still want to work towards, or that is really it does make you feel better, even if it's a tiny bit better, that you might be able to navigate a little bit more towards. And even beyond that, if that doesn't help, if you're really feeling uninspired to even make a list, to even think about what you're doing, you want to avoid everything at this point. For me, I like to move. Just putting on music, being able to be in my body, being able to move, to dance, to feel, whether that's happy, sad, frustrated, whatever feelings come out in my movement, that is super healing for me. That's one of my big medicines. Just get up and move, whether that's dancing, maybe it's cleaning your house, maybe it's leaving your house and going outside and getting a walk around the block or down the street. Just move your body. And even if you're still miserable, at least your body is going to be thankful for it. If you succeed with moving, celebrate. If you succeed with leaving the house, celebrate. Celebrate the small victories. Celebrate the medium successes. Celebrate the large successes. Be bold. Don't be afraid to have an ego, as long as you're not using it to put other people down. If you're proud of something, be proud. Even if it's something as simple as, I made myself craft dinner today. I took a shower today. I went to bed early today. Anything that makes you feel good, celebrate it. And if you can't do it on your own, then maybe you have friends who can. Having friends to celebrate even those small victories with you, if they know that you're going through a hard time, can be really, really impactful. If even with that, if you feel like you're still burnt out, you feel like you're not managing, you're not coping, it's not helping, and you're even if you're just coping, sometimes coping's good enough. If you feel like you can't cope, or you're not coping, or you are but you want to do better, there's no shame in getting support and getting help. Whether that's professional help, whether that's talking to friends, mentors, other burlesque performers who've experienced burnout and maybe been in similar situations as you, that is something that is so important. And I think that's something that needs to be utilized a lot more, is knowing that you are not by yourself, and this again is not a unique experience, and it is okay to get help, and it is okay to acknowledge that I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I'm tired of being tired. The only way that we're really gonna start to accept burnout and help each other and make it easier to cope with is when we can acknowledge that it exists and acknowledge that it's a common experience. So those are kind of some of the things that I like to keep in mind. Everyone's different. Some of those things I mentioned may work, some might not work. Maybe none of them work. Hopefully they at least helped, or hopefully they at least gave you some ideas to do your own thing, figure out what works for you and what doesn't work. Because burnout is very real, and it is very okay to experience. It might feel scary, it might feel frustrating, but definitely it is there to say that you need to slow down. Because if we don't slow down and if we don't listen to our bodies will make us slow down. If you have questions, know my comments are always open. My inbox and my email are always open, so feel free to send me a message and I'm happy to chat things through. I am not a professional therapist or psychologist or mental health expert, but I am someone who can talk. And with that, I hope to see you next time. Bye. Why, hello again. This is Editing Cherry, jumping on to say that if you are interested in extended cuts of the videos that I provide on YouTube, or templates, or any deeper dives into my personal burlesque life, you can check them out now on my brand new Patreon. Woo! I have just recently started a Patreon at Cheeky Burlesque, and you can follow me right there if you want to support my art financially, as well as get a little bit of benefits for yourself, a little bit deeper than you can on YouTube right here. It is new, it is exciting, and I hope to see you there.